Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today I got something slightly different. For those who have recently subscribed, everything I've been building has been this Mustang right here. Ignore the flat tire. That tire just doesn't hold air. It hasn't been sitting a long time. It goes flat in 24 hours. Anyways, today I'm going to be working on the F150. Or actually, I'm sorry, not today. It'll actually be tomorrow, but there'll be no lag for you. I'm just starting the beginning of the video right now. For those of you who haven't seen my F150 or any of my videos about it, 2015 3.5 liter F150 EcoBoost. Pretty much have run out of modifications to do to it. Everything's been done at this point as far as intake, exhaust, tuning, methanol injection, etc., etc. So I've resorted to having to buy parts that aren't even for my truck. And that's going to be the AMS boost tubes, I believe what they call them. They're actually made for the 2017 through 2019 F-150s and Raptors. Like I just said, I have a 15. These are not intended for my truck, but they don't make them for my truck. And after contacting them, they have said they have no plans whatsoever to make them for the 15 and 16s. So basically going to try to get these to work in the truck. They're going to look like this right here. I haven't begun working on the truck because I just came back from doing a data log, and I'll show you that in just a second. So the truck is actually still fully assembled. No work has been done to it, no disassembly, nothing. So I can't do a side-by-side, but I will do a side-by-side as I start to tear stuff apart. This is going to be the driver's side, very similar to the stock tube. I can tell you right now, this tube right here does not exist on the 15s. I think it's to like a factory catch can or something like that. That's a simple cap, no big deal, because this is a pipe that has basically vacuum through it. It doesn't even have to be a really strong cap, I guess you'd say. There's not gonna be any pressure in this pipe, it's gonna be all vacuum. So the big difference is that how the big diameter, as well as this fitting, the OEM piping stays tiny, like this opening right here, for a long period. Even worse on the other side, which is the passenger side. This pipe chokes down drastically, as well as it has a flat spot up here, or somewhere in this neighborhood. It gets real flat, like pinched, in order to make it clear some of the other things in the car. And whereas these clearly do not. I can tell you, besides this being capped off, on my 2015, there is a vacuum port right here that you can clearly see there is not one on the aftermarket pipes. So that's as simple as just putting in a hose barb you can pick up at the hardware store or at any auto parts store for like $2. I know I have some laying around. I do a bunch of stuff with brass fittings, so that's not going to cost me anything. I'm not going to have to go to the store. But if this is successful and you decide to duplicate it, you're going to have to pick one up. See, like I said, a bunch of them just laying around. That's bigger than it's actually going to be. The hose is actually very, very tiny. But like I said, I have this crap just laying around all over. So other than one port that's going to have to be added here and this being capped off, everything looks like it's going to line up pretty good. The other issue I'm seeing is that the actual mounting points, this one right here and this one down here, are not going to line up very well or at all. Luckily, these pipes weigh nothing. So between being mounted at the turbo and then being mounted at the intake, I really don't see any need for the mounting points. I can tell you on my Mustang, which I can show you real quick since the hood is off, all this plumbing, and there's nothing holding the pipes in place except for where it's mounted. It's mounted here at this turbo, mounted here at this turbo, and then right inside is the intercooler. There is no support all along these pipes, and it does just fine. You know, even on a car making 1,200 horsepower, obviously acceleration is going to be much harder than in the truck. A lot more vibration with solid motor mounts, etc., etc. If that thing can survive without a bunch of mounting points along the piping, then obviously some lightweight plastic pipes that are only a couple feet long are going to do just fine in a truck that's maybe making 500 to the tire. So with that said, I think it's going to work out well. I did a quick data log. BCB is my tuner. So I use the configuration file that they ask for or ask you to use when you're sending in your data logs. So if it's missing information that you desperately wanted ahead of time, I'm sorry, I'm not going back to do another data log because it's now 4:30 at night. I got to go pick up my kids from the grandparents' house before I start getting bitched at about that. They don't like to babysit for too long, so I got to go and do that. I don't have time to do any more data logs. And tomorrow morning, the truck's getting torn apart. So the things I'm really interested in is the one that's highlighted now, it's throttle angle actual. So despite the fact that my foot was all the way to the floor, we see the throttle angle never passing 81.89 degrees. 90 degrees would be wide open. So the computer has basically determined I don't need to go wide open even though my foot is to the floor. So it's making the power that the computer is commanding without actually opening the throttle all the way. If those pipes right here help, I would expect this number to actually decrease. That's what the couple of people who have run these on the 17 through 19 trucks have noticed is a few degrees less of throttle angle to make the same power or more. The other things that I'm going to be looking at would be boost in PSI. At this point in time, my truck is having no problems carrying 18 PSI with a spike here of almost 20 PSI of boost throughout the RPM range. So I would hope to see at least that, if not better. And then the other thing that's interesting that I'm glad they data log is airflow in pounds per minute. So at max airflow, the turbo was putting out 48.87 pounds per minute of air. Great, now my laptop's gonna die. That means I have about 2 minutes before this dies out. It's gonna be, what's it? Sorry, there's so many things on here. I think it's this yellow line you can barely see here. So we're seeing a peak somewhere in this neighborhood. It's kind of hard to see. But I'm hoping to see that number go up. I would love to see it go up, 2 pounds a minute. That would be absolute justification that this modification is worth doing. But even if it only makes power down low, seat of the pants type of thing, which is what AMS is claiming is more power under the curve, it would still be a justifiable modification despite the price of almost $400. Because if you are going to tow with it, any more power you can get down low is always good. They claim that they made the same horsepower claim, or if it was another company who tested it, but they didn't gain any horsepower, but they made the same power 1,000 RPM lower. So that would be pretty impressive as well, especially if you tow a lot. So we will see. That was on a stock truck as well. My truck is heavily modified, so we're really going to find out if these things are worth doing, because we're going to get, my truck is demanding as much airflow as possible. So if it needs more airflow, this is going to be the only way to do it. So we will find out tomorrow morning when the next clip pops up in this video. The next thing you're going to see me saying is good morning. Let's tear this truck apart. So in 2 seconds, you're going to see that, but I got to wait till tomorrow to film it. So I'll see you in 2 seconds. All right. Good morning, everyone. It's a new day, starting to tear down. I'm going to try to get these pipes installed on my truck. I've started actually working already before I pulled out the camera, simply because it was easier to do without the camera, without having to mount it anywhere, aim it, etc., talk to it. So nothing I've done so far requires any special skills or talent or information. All I did was I removed my InGen cold air intake, which took a couple of nuts here that were 10 millimeter, and then a couple of the aftermarket clamps are 8 millimeter. So 2 sockets there, and then as you can see, the pipe has already been removed. And this is held on at the turbo with a 7 millimeter socket. So far all I've used is 3 sockets, and I've done nothing that anybody can do. I did remove this, the crankcase vent, PCV, whatever thing, and just left it dangling off to the side. That takes no tools. You just push this over, the little plastic clip on this side, push it over, pull up, and it's out. It's essentially the same thing with the bypass valve recirculation tube. You twist it this way, like that. It's very easy to do, and then pull down, it comes right out. And then with these, you slide the clip back. There's 2 of them, and then they slide right off as well. So basically 3 sockets and my bare hands, and that pipe came right out. So that means, here we go. We can get the first side-by-side comparison. Oops, tripping all over everything. So we can see they are a bit different. The main thing as far as how customization would work is that you know, the stuff that you can't really modify, you want to line up. This is actually slightly turned in relation to the other one. So now that I hold it that way, you can see these 2 that I just showed you how to remove, they line up just fine. So that's not gonna be an issue. This is the one that's got to get plugged because on the stock one, it does not exist. This one is going to be interesting because in the stock configuration, it points up, as you can see in this as it's laying down, whereas on this pipe, it angles drastically off to the side at about a 45-degree angle. And because this is the one that has that sensor attached to it, there's basically no play in that hose at all. So I can tell you right now, that's going to become an issue that I'm pretty sure is going to require a trip to the hardware store, as well as require me to cut this up. What I'm more than likely going to do is I'll cut the hose here off of the plastic fitting and cut it here. Either that or I'll do the other side and eliminate this hard 90. But one way or another, when I make the decision, I'll show you guys what I did. But after that pipe goes in, I can make that decision more accurately when I see it in place. But anyways, that's what's going to have to get done. This will for sure have to get modified because it's not going to work. But that's a very simple fix. The main thing is just getting that big pipe in. If the big pipe fits, everything else is just an accessory that can be modified to work. So I'm now going to shove this guy down into place. I'm going to put the camera down so that I can do that. It actually, let's see. I can tell you right now, the mounting will not line up because this isn't even close. See, it's gonna be like that. As you can see, way off. So we're not gonna be relying on the factory mounting point. This will probably get cut off, and then this looks like it's gonna be a perfect alignment with the OEM bypass. So that should bolt back up without issue. So I'm gonna stick this guy into place. And then after I get it in there, I'll pick up the camera again and take a look at everything. And one thing I should mention is that I'm not getting paid for this. These aren't free parts. I had to buy them with my own money. So whether this works out great or whether it works out horrible, you're going to hear about it. No one paid me for a positive review to help sell products. The $400 it took to buy these pipes came out of my pocket, and I'm not getting anything exchanged for this review. So this is a completely unbiased review. Whether it works or not, you're going to know about it. So let me put the camera down and I'll jam that pipe into place. Okay, a few minutes have passed by, maybe 10, 15 because I took a bathroom break, but whatever. I got the pipe in. I've got an assistant now, so things are going to go a lot faster. If you want to say that. Here's what it looks like. The pipe is in. This is the one back here that I had to put that syringe, that hypodermic needle looking thing, in case you have a colder intake like the InGen or the AFE Stage 2, because these trucks have a sensor right here on the crankcase vent that monitors airflow. Without that little needle thing in there, it's going to throw a check engine light. I didn't install it right away when I first put the InGen intake install. I can't talk today. When I first put the InGen intake in my truck, I drove it for about 600 miles before the check engine light came on. Then I installed that little needle, and it hasn't come on since. So it did transfer over to this pipe, no problem. So that went in real good. The issue that I had caught is that this pipe, which should be connected here and then connect right down there, clearly does not reach over there. So the easiest solution is going to be cut this plastic heat shrink whatever crap off of here, and off of here, and then I'm just going to go to the auto parts store and buy a 1 foot piece of hose. Hold on to those wrenches, sweetheart. I'm going to buy a 1 foot piece of hose just because I think that's the shortest they'll let you buy. And then I'll cut it to fit when I get it over here to the car. So super easy fix. And the reason I'm cutting this side, hold on Lucy, I'm talking, one sec, is because I don't want to have to do anything with the electronics. This way the electronics stays in the OEM location, so it's going to connect to the OEM harness, which is right here, without any issues, difficulties, modification, etc., etc. And then of course I'll have to buy a vacuum cap for this guy right here because the 15s do not have anything here. As I had said, you can clearly see the mounting location doesn't even come close. So there's nothing holding it other than the single clamp and coupler down at the turbo at this current moment in time. But these things lined up just fine. No modification needed on these guys as I expected. And then you can see down here in the fender, you can access the turbo, the OEM clamp, aftermarket clamp. All that stuff is accessible through the fender. You don't have to remove the tire or even jack the truck up. So my truck sits at stock height. If you have a lowering kit, it might be a little different for you. But at stock height or a lifted truck, you're not going to even have to pull out the jack and stand. So the next thing to do, since I'm pretty much done on this side, I can't finish hooking up that last bit of piping because I have to go to the hardware store, as I said, or auto parts store, I'm sorry. I'm going to start pulling the other side apart, and once I get a little bit further down the road on that side, I'll pull the camera back out and update you guys. All right, I got the OEM pipe out from the passenger side, and this is where you can really see the difference in these two pipes. This one is pinched basically from here all the way down to right about here is where it becomes round again. So from here to there it's pinched. It's also much smaller diameter, and then you can see this stays really tiny for the first multiple inches, whereas this, the turbo inlet, is going to stop right here. So it's got a wide open amount of air it can just suck from immediately, rather than have to pull through this tiny little straw. One thing that you guys won't have in common with my truck is that I have this brass fitting that I talked about you're going to need earlier in the video. The reason I have one of these and you have a plastic one is because when I installed my MBRP hot pipes, you can see these guys right here, I forgot to disconnect the vacuum line, which is this one right here, from the OEM plastic nipple. And when I did that and pulled the pipe out, I broke it. So what I did is I took one of these brass fittings that I had just laying around, drilled out the plastic pipe and threaded this in. So regardless of whether you broke yours coming out or not, you're going to have to drill into this brand new pipe to install a fitting here, because you do need a source of vacuum. I think something to do with the wastegates I think is attached here. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert on how these trucks work. But that's going to be what I'm going to do next. I'll probably drop this pipe into place if it'll let me. I don't know if it will, because this thing was a nightmare to pull out, so I'm not looking forward to putting the bigger one in. That's why it has these deep scratches in it, because I basically got tired of finessing it and just grabbed it and yanked it, and it finally came out. So I'll try to put this one in. If it falls into place, great. I'll mark it with a pen, and then I'll drill and tap. Lucy, quiet down. If it doesn't fall into place easily, I don't want to have to do it twice, and I don't want to drill and tap it while it's still in the car, because then I have to deal with the plastic shavings going into my turbo. So I will basically line them up as they are now, drill, tap, get that out of the way while it's still outside of the car. But when you get down to this other end, same diameter, 3-inch pipe. It just stays 3 inches the entire way, as opposed to this one that's choked down almost the entire way. So let me make a little progress on that, and then I'll pick up the camera again. Okay, second pipe, or passenger side pipe, however you want to call it, is now installed. It barely clears. The mounting location, the little bung that sticks out, I'll show you on this one. This little guy right here, it was interfering, so I basically ground it off, pretty much almost completely flush with the pipe. I don't know if I can get the camera in there, but as you can see, maybe it would have interfered with the mounting bracket that's supposed to hold the pipe in place. So it had to go. Otherwise, this pipe would have been way up like this and would be forcing the rest of the intake to fit properly. So I do have a catch can that sits right here, which is this mess right here. I'll drain it since it's out. But this side went together pretty well. It was difficult to get the factory pipe out, and then this pipe, which is even bigger, was not going to fit, except I had to remove the MBRP hot pipe, which was real easy. I still have to tighten up that clamp, but it was one clamp and it pulled right up, and then everything slid into place. So I did have the pipe in and out multiple times without any issue. Hold on, Lucy, I'm talking. This is the brass fitting. I basically just drilled it. I used the fitting itself to tap into the pipe. So I drilled the hole and then threaded it in, because this is real soft plastic and this is brass. It threaded in without any issue. Obviously I didn't have to use a tap or anything like that. The drill bit I used was just a regular step bit. See what it says? 7/16 is the smaller size. Where's the actual measurement? 1/2 inch. So it's a 1/2 inch hole on that particular brass fitting. So maybe if you're not certain on what size hole you're gonna have to drill with the brass fitting that you have, do a test drill into the stock pipe or some other junk you have laying around. But at this point, it seems that this pipe is gonna work just fine. It looks like it's in the OEM location, this connection, maybe something like this. We'll see when I actually hook everything up. So I'm now gonna attempt to hook up the cold air intake. I already had this pipe on, this big guy. It was a little tight, but it was going to work. So I'm going to play with the orientation of this gigantic 4-inch diameter coupler. Hopefully it'll give me a little bit of play to make everything line up real well. Plus also at the time that I did put it in, I didn't have this pipe in. So once the two are together, we might have some interference issues, but we're going to find out right now. So let me go ahead and try to put that in, and then I'll grab the camera and update you guys again. But so far as the pipes physically fitting, they fit. They clear all the major things. I'm not hitting anything. I'm obviously not cutting into anything. Other than to cut off the little mounting tab or nub, whatever you want to call that thing. No cutting was done, but that was plastic. You can practically bite it off with your teeth. I wouldn't recommend it. You'll mess up your teeth. But my point is, it's soft as hell, real easy to cut right off. So let me try to get the rest of the intake on, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we're about 98% done here. Oh yeah, flying in formation, looks good. I got the cold side, or actually the engine cold air intake back in place, everything bolted up exactly as you'd expect. I did have to slide this coupler a little bit further over because I felt it was a little loose. As you can see, there's still a small gap here at the bottom. But it is in there secure, so don't have any fears about that. And you can always buy longer couplers if you're ever worried about it. But in the end, this is all vacuum tubing. It's never going to blow off because air is being drawn through it and not pressurized in these pipes. So that's not going to ever be an issue. Everything's hooked up on this side. I got my cheapy eBay intercooler, wow, catch can hooked back up. No issues at all. Everything on this side of the car is tight, done, over. Everything fits perfect. With the small modification, as I mentioned before, cutting off the little mounting nub, we're good to go. I guess we can peel this sticker off, if that's important to some people. I actually kind of wish the AMS logo wasn't right there so that it looked like stock piping, but it is what it is. When we come over to this side, a few things need to be tightened. These clamps are just finger tight. I didn't put a wrench on them, so I'll tighten this one and then the one back here. I never had to remove this hot pipe, so that's good to go. As you can see, I still don't have this hooked up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it here and here, as I already said, and then measure a pipe, the diameter, or I could take this with me, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to have to go to the auto parts store to make this work and to cap this guy off down here. I will look around my garage. I always have random car parts laying around, so I might have a cap, but I'm not holding my breath on having one that big. So I'm gonna have to spend a couple bucks in addition to the rest of this kit, but it's nothing terrible. Everything seems to be working quite well. Get you a full view of what it looks like. I will put the engine cover back on. I don't like the way it looks without the cover. Everything should still fit. I don't see any reason why the cover won't fit with this pipe in place. So that's where we're at right now. Once I have this modified, I'll show you that just so there's no confusion on it. You know exactly what you have to do. If I remember, I'll give you the exact length of the piping that I added in there, as well as the diameter pipe I bought. So you don't have to cut and measure. You'll know ahead of time before you even start this project. You can have all your stuff ready to go. So let me get that done, and should be getting ready to fire it up the next time I pick up the camera. Okay, last update before I actually go out and drive the truck. Just got back from the auto parts store. I spent about $13 on random things I would need to finish this project. I bought a couple of hose clamps, some 5/8 inch hose, and a 5/8 inch vacuum cap. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a little package that just had the 5/8 inch vacuum caps, so I had to buy a big box of them. So it ended up costing $6 for about a dozen various sized vacuum caps. If you can find just that one size you need, you can save a couple bucks. But when I cut the plastic off, the plastic 90 that was attached on here, where did that go? Here it is. I just took this razor blade, made a slit there, and it came right off. No big deal. This is plastic. The razor blade will cut right into it. It's very thin. And that's when I replaced it with about 10 inches of 5/8 inch hose. It came in this packet right here. It's actually 19 30-seconds hose. This was about $3. It says crankcase vent hose, which is great because that's exactly what I'm using it for. I think this was, like I said, $3 or $4. I'm not quite sure how long it is. 2 feet long. So I feel like I got a good deal. I didn't need all of it. Like I said, 10 inches. That's all it took. I'm going to try to jam this guy down in here. So put this one on first, down here. Try to do this with one hand. Let's see. Not quite tall enough. Let me put the camera down. Hold on. Okay, had to get out the stool, but there we go. It's connected exactly as it should be, using the OEM connector. 10 inches of hose, and then this is all stock right here. OEM connector. The sensor, which is still sitting in the stock location, has been plugged in, so we're good to go there. That's it. It is 100% buttoned up and done, with the exception of the engine cover, which I will put on. Since this is under vacuum only and it was actually a snug fit, I didn't bother to put a hose clamp on it. Maybe I'll put a zip tie on it, or if I find a crappy hose clamp laying around, I'll put that on. But I wasn't about to spend money on something that doesn't need a hose clamp, other than for mental reassurance or peace of mind, I guess. It serves no purpose. So the one thing I did forget at the auto parts store is a magnet. I can't find mine. It magically disappeared, like everything in my garage, which is a mess. But I dropped 2 sockets down into the suspension area of the frame. So I want my sockets back. I'm not going to drive the truck until I get those back, because they're both part of a set. 2 different sets. I'm going to be mad if I have 2 different sets missing sockets. So with that said, and the fact that we're about to walk out the door, I'm not going to drive it right now, but it's done. Do I have my keys on me? I do. So we can start it up. I just don't want to move it because I don't want to lose those sockets. But let's see how it sounds. Any different? I don't know. Probably not. Only one way to find out. Let's see. Well, it didn't explode. That's always a good sign. Everything's hooked up. See? Pretty much sounds exactly like it did before. Whoops, got this on. Let's see. So for the most part, it pretty much just sounds exactly like it did after I put just the cold air intake on when it still had those the factory pipes. We won't know until I actually take it for a drive if it sounds that drastically different on the road when it's under load, etc., etc. The one thing I would like to point out, though, if you do decide to do this, when you start putting everything together, what I found works best as far as hooking the bypass valve up. So despite the fact you could hear it blowing off or venting, simply because it vents right next to these open element air filters, it is still recirculating just as the factory intended. See if I can get the camera in there. You can kind of see it. It's this pipe right here. When you go to hook it back up, it's not 100% perfect. So what I found works best is if you disconnect it from where it hooks up at the bypass valve down in the intercooler area, so that that pipe is completely loose. Connect it to the AMS pipe first, and then with just the slightest little bit of effort, you can move. I hate to use the word bend because then it sounds like you're really messing it up, but you're basically, the pipe misses perfect alignment by about 1/4 of an inch. So it's much easier to push it over 1/4 of an inch and then pop it into place down underneath than it is up top when you have all the pipes in the way and everything like that. So like I said, my advice, connect it up here, the bypass valve or pipe, connect it at the AMS pipe first, then connect it at the intercooler. So much easier. So that's it. I'm gonna get the engine cover back on. I am about to go out to lunch with my family. While I'm out, I'm gonna get a magnet so I can get my sockets back. Once I get my sockets out of the frame, I am going to take it for a test drive, and if the sun is still up at that time, I'll take my data logger with me, or the laptop, so I can data log it. The road I go to, I don't really like to go down that road at night because it's pitch black, and it's out in the middle of the desert. I don't need any coyotes running across the street when I'm doing 100 miles an hour. So if the sun goes down before I can get out there and drive it, I'll have to wait till tomorrow to do the data log. But I will be driving it tonight, one way or another. So, hope you learned something there. The next clip will be showing off my data logs. So, you guys get to jump right to that, and I get to wait till this afternoon or tomorrow. So, see you here in a little bit. Okay, so just got back from doing a data log on the truck, and I have them here on the computer. As far as seat of the pants feels, before we get into numbers, I would say there was an improvement. It felt so much smoother. The truck didn't feel like it was working whatsoever. At first, I thought, well, maybe it's not pulling quite as hard as I want it to. Then I looked down at the speedometer and realized I was passing 90 miles an hour, and that seemed to come up. You know, I got to that speed so much faster than I feel like I should have, or what I'm used to doing. So that was a plus for me. I also know that I know for a fact that I did get up to 100 miles an hour faster, because usually on that same street in the exact same spot where I take off from, there's a stop sign. I do go in this, I go from where it dead ends back to the civilization, towards the city basically. And from the same place I start off at the same way I apply the throttle, once I hit 100 miles an hour, I got to lay into the brakes real hard to come to a stop before I get to the stop sign. This time I got up to 100 miles an hour so quickly that I barely had to get on the brakes, and I still had plenty of room to go afterwards. So that was another indication that it was pulling better. And then as far as the data, flip this around here. A couple things to look at. I had mentioned the throttle angle actual. So this is how far the computer is opening the throttle. Regardless of what I'm telling it to do, this is what the computer has chosen to do. Let's see here. This one here is going to be the before the pipes, 81.89, and then after the pipes, 81.9. So basically no difference. I expected that number to actually drop. I'm a little surprised it didn't, but the computer continued to give it the same amount of throttle regardless of what pipes were in there. So a little surprised, but it doesn't really mean anything. Not relevant to the pipes themselves, but you can come over here. It was basically air temperature before the install, 62 degrees. This was after, 62 roughly while making the pull. It's cold outside. I have a bigger intercooler and methanol injection. So I was happy to see the intake temps were nice and cold, but again, irrelevant to this test. Oops. Wait, was that? No, it's 62. I'm sorry. I was looking at the same one twice. It was 62 compared to 66. So air temperatures were slightly colder, but not significant. Let's see. The other one, we see boost pressure. This is the before. We have 19.86. The thing that you want to notice here is that right here in the higher RPMs before the shift, boost pressure drops to below 16 psi, and then it shoots back up to 19.86 is the max right after the shift, because the RPMs are lower. That was before installing the pipes. After installing the pipes, we have boost pressure. The line seems so much smoother. And then the dip in the high RPMs right before the shift. Remember, the other one had a much bigger dip before these aftermarket AMS pipes went in. It was dipping down into just below 16. I think I said 15.96, was it? Yeah, 15.95 is what boost was dropping to right before the shift. After the pipes, we see boost pressure at 1769. So more than 1.5 psi more just from installing those pipes in the higher RPM. We don't have that dip. Boost stays pretty much right at 18 psi for the entire pull. And then the spike after the shift, which before was 19 something, is now 20 something, 20.15. So small difference there, insignificant as far as power is concerned, but there's still a difference. And then you see in the higher gear, I think this is second and this is third, carrying the boost all the way through. So no issues there, and the boost drops off when I let off the gas. And then the other interesting one is going to be the airflow. This is going to be before. We see this yellow line right here, a max of 48.87 pounds per minute. And then after the pipes, we see a max of 52.34. So quite a big difference there. So let's see, what was it? I say 48, almost 49. Up to well over 52 pounds per minute of airflow. So the math, as well as what I experienced out on the road as far as how quickly it jumped up to 100 miles an hour and how much extra road space I had to shut it down, tells me it is accelerating harder. It's running much better. It was definitely a worthwhile modification to do. I should also point out, if you want to get really scientific, the air density, or the DA. DA, when I did the before test, was 1,630 feet. When I did the after test, it was 1,750. So the air quality is actually lower right now than it was when I did the before test. So in theory, if nothing at all changed, it should actually go slower with the lower air quality. It is over 100 feet different in DA, so air quality did drop, and yet we're seeing results that would suggest otherwise. Even though the air quality was worse, the truck ran better. So I would say it's a definitely worthwhile modification to do. It wasn't a night and day difference like I was hoping it to be, but like I said, I have pretty much every single modification that can be done. There was no retuning in the process of doing this. Once my catback goes in, I will hit up BCV to see if they want to increase my tune aggressiveness a little bit. I doubt they will, because I like to stay kind of conservative, especially at this horsepower range, which is fine. It's my daily driver. I need it to last a long time. But with no extra tuning and the air quality being worse, I would say we definitely picked up a noticeable amount of power. And like I said earlier, the engine feels like it's not even trying. It felt effortless to go from about 25 miles an hour where I floored it all the way up to 100 miles an hour. It just felt smooth. There's really no other way to describe it. The truck just felt like it wasn't working at all. It was just happening. So very happy with this modification. Other than the catback, I don't know where else I'm going to go as far as modifications are concerned. I think I'm pretty much at the end of the road. And then I have to just turn my attention back to the Mustang, which is way over there somewhere, sitting, waiting for its turn to have some fun. So anyways, I hope this video helped you guys out in making your decision as whether you should buy these pipes or not. And if you did decide you should buy them, I hope that the information I provided makes the install easier for you guys. Anyways, thanks for watching.